Welcome to the Final Girls podcast. I'm Anna Bogutska, your podcast host, and I'm about to indulge in a little bit of a personal news moment because my book on horror films and feelings is out now. Feeding the Monster, Why Horror Has a Hold on Us is being released out into the world today. And I'm slightly overwhelmed. Very overwhelmed, actually, by how easy it was to write, how incredibly quickly everything has come together, by how amazing my publishers are, by the response of people who've read it so far. I always knew that I wanted to write a book about horror, about the movies, about the culture of horror movies, about why I love and respond to the genre so intensely, and why it has become the dominating and defining genre of the last decade. But more than anything, I have always wanted to write a long love letter to a genre that I think is the most honest, the most sincere type of filmmaking. Under all the monsters and the ghosts and the high concepts and the blood, the best horror movies have a beating heart at the center of them. And I think I've always been drawn to figuring out what the beating heart is. That is all one weird way to say that I have a book out. And I would love for you to pick it up and to read it. It's a book of nonfiction, or essays, if you will, about horror culture and feelings, and about what it's like to be a horror fan, and what it feels like to love a genre that maybe hasn't always loved you back. So, Feeding the Monster is out today in the UK. If you have pre-ordered the book already, thank you so much. Pre-orders are really so important for authors. It really is like our opening weekend. If you like this podcast and you're listening so far, then you might like the book. There's always a question mark in there for me, because you might not, and that is also fine. And if you're curious about Feeding the Monster and you want to check it out, I'm also here to give you a discount. If you head to faber.co.uk, you can order the book with a 30% discount using the code podcast30. That's podcast3030. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well. You can use the code. That's it. That's my 5 minutes of self-promotion done. Feel a bit sick about it, but, and this is quite unusual for me to say, I feel quite proud of the book. And I hope you enjoy it if you do read it. If you do, and you pick up and you read Feeding the Monster, I'd love to know what you think. I'd love you to tell me your horror origin story. Thank you so much for indulging me. Back to our regularly scheduled programming from tomorrow.